before the drugs started with the expansion of welfare. In this same article, they talk about in the Institute for Family Studies. So the interesting thing is they talk about welfare. Now, me personally, I don't have any strong issues with welfare. I haven't. I'm not somebody that's like, oh, get rid of all the programs. But I think we've never really had an analysis as to how they affected
Yeah.
the family. So Lyndon B. Johnson is always credited as this amazing. Nah, he's not credited as amazing, but he's credited as somebody who helped with the civil rights bill he signed and all of that. After King or during King's, right before King was assassinated, rather. So all this stuff happened in the '60s, correct? Mm-hmm. So when Lyndon B. Johnson, who was a Democrat, apparently, from what I understand, a lot of us were conservative as well before the civil rights movement. After the civil rights movement, black people, it skyrocketed as far as us being Democrats.
Interesting.
Right.
I wonder if that polarizes with more services being provided to lower income families or single
exactly
mothers and all of that stuff, all of the programs.
That stuff didn't. So what happened is that prior to the civil rights movement, they didn't. There was welfare, but the welfare assistance was not. It wasn't proliferated. It wasn't pushed to the level of what it became after. So what they did. So let's go back to Lyndon B. Johnson.
Focusing on a single group of people.
Well, what they essentially did. So Lyndon B. Johnson said, right? So he said we're gonna have these niggas voting Democrat for the next 200 years. Because what he decided to do, what did he say? Specifically, what he said is that these Negroes are getting a little uppity, right? They're getting a little bit uppity, and for the first time...
I hope there's a video clip because I need to hear this.
Well,
maybe we can insert it. Yeah,
maybe we'll insert it. But apparently, what he said is that these Negroes are starting to get very uppity, and for the first time, they are able to kind of galvanize politically, because that's what the '60s were about. We were starting to galvanize politically and understand how we can get things done, right? So what he said is we need to give them a little bit more. As far as programs. He didn't say programs specifically, but we need to give them a little bit more just to, calm them down, but not enough to make a difference, right? So after that, that's when they increased a lot of the welfare programs, and essentially, so I'll just read a little bit about the welfare. So for instance, identifying welfare as a contributor. So one of the contributing factors was that when they started to increase welfare, one of the first rules was that you could not have a male in the home, right? So this isn't new news. A lot of people have talked about this before, but it's a critical turn as to where things started to turn as far as the nuclear family. Males could not be in the home, So they started to make it to a point where, and they would make it where they had people who worked in welfare would do spot checks, and they would come around to homes and make sure, and it wouldn't be it would be unannounced visits. So you could not have a man in the home. So it was definitely to the women's advantage they still had their men, right? But the man had to make sure he's sneaking in and out. And that's a terrible thing. And I think that contributed a lot to fatherlessness. So that's some systematic things, but I'll let you go. I know I've been going for minutes.
No, I find all of that very interesting. I didn't know some of those statistics, but I can see how. Now the programs that they do provide, this is how I feel. Like I say, it shouldn't be on one extreme. It shouldn't be on either end of the spectrum.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Not too hard this way, not too hard this way. I think it's beneficial to have the programs available for people who need it. And I think there should be more stipulations on how long you can stay on the system. Having the resources, so you can either better your situation It's good to have all the resources available for those who really need it. But what
Yeah.
I find what we're doing today is taking advantage of that system. And it does keep us separated at the end of the day. It does
Yeah.
keep us separated because
become dependent on
you
it.
become so dependent on it. And like I always says,
Like I always be
my
saying.
grandmother, this is my grandmother, my great grandmother coming out. That's like I always says.
Miss Elsie?
That's my grandmother.
No, your great grandmother.
I'm thinking
Okay.
my great grandmother, my ancestors about to come out. It's easy to stay in the path of least resistance. It's so easy to stay in the path of least resistance. So I think why we are always, voting Democrat or liberal is because that's where all the resources at. For some people, this is not for everybody, but I
Right.
think us collectively as a group, we got to change that mindset because it's not helping you further your growth, your individual growth. It actually makes you more dependent upon the government.
Right.
But you want freedom, right?
Right.
We really can't see outside of that, so it affects your personal growth, your family growth, community growth.
Yeah. No, facts.
Summarized it up.
That's a fact. Well, you know what? This is such a huge topic, and it's so much. So when it comes to the system itself, looking at where it started and the reasons for it, right? And so it seems now, looking back at history, it seems that they provided certain programs in a way to calm black people down. Calm your ass down. We're going to provide more assistance, but we're going to make sure a man is not in the household. So it seems, looking back on history, and it seems looking at things that Lyndon Johnson said, who was heroed for, that period of time, it seems that it was provided in a way to actually not be helpful, to keep, like you just said, to keep us very dependent on the government.
So do you think that's what the intention was?
It seems so because, getting back to our original conversation, being conservative, small government, not wanting to depend or deal with the government as much, versus liberal, big government, programs,
Yeah.
all these programs.
Yeah.
The question is, were those programs actually even good? This guy, Harvard's Paul Peterson. So he said some programs actively discourage marriage because welfare assistance went to mothers so long as no male was boarding in the household, like we already talked about. Marriage to an unemployed male earning one income or earning the minimum wage placed a risk at the mother's economic well-being. Infamous man-in-the-house rules meant the welfare workers would randomly appear in homes to check to see if the mother was accurately reporting her family status. So the benefits available were generous. According to Peterson, it was estimated that in 1975, a household head would have to earn $20,000 a year to have more resources than what it could be obtained from the Great Society programs. You'd have to earn more than 20 G's.
Less than 20 G's, right?
Well, no, it says you'd have to earn $20,000 a year in resources than what could be obtained from the Great Society program. So what they're saying is essentially you would have had to earn $20,000 a year to essentially equal what you could get, right? So
Got it.
yeah. So essentially, the incentive was essentially to not have a man. Because if you have some level of income there, they just wouldn't give it to you. You know what I'm saying? So even if that man even if he was earning a minimum wage, you still wouldn't get the benefits. So it creates an incentive. So I think that's what started the fatherlessness, that triggered that fatherlessness society that we have in general in America,
Yeah.
but specifically for black people.
Yeah.
I think that started it.